So maybe let's start it. Um, okay. See, the recording has been started, and here we go. Hey everybody, yeah, once again. So, as I mentioned, yeah, the holidays are coming. I believe everyone is waiting and in good mood of upcoming holidays. For now, let's focus on our further plans within the course and possibly discuss the questions. Great. So, yeah, we accommodated the following week, so we're good to go with the next one. So if you remember that the last week we haven't like planned any of the assignments, but at the same time, the topic is quite important because the knowledge you gained on the client-server communication is useful for the next task. That's where we're going to start, starting from today. Anyway, a couple of news for you. First of all, we uh, dealt with the rest of students that for some reason left without mentors and accommodated the interview. So we tried to reassign all of them to other free mentors, but at the same time, if some of you haven't scheduled or passed the interview due to having not enough knowledge to pass further, so unfortunately, we're saying that we need to take for those students, they need to take some more time to eliminate the gaps and come to the course later on. There is no any restriction of passing the course over and over again. So in case if you see that you need some more time to get better prepared for the next run, so okay, here we go. No restrictions here. Okay, I believe um, we could go further with the next week. So before taking a look closely at the next task as in Grace, now, yeah, you can see that it's designed for 3 weeks. I propose for a moment to stop here to discuss possible questions regarding to your experience with Mentor, to the course itself, and then we could go further with the task. Taking a closer look. So we can stop here to discuss your questions, if any. If no, we could proceed further. Okay, so yeah, please let me know in case if anything is bothers you still so far. And for now, let's carry on to the asynchronous task. So as I mentioned previously, that this task is designed for 3 weeks, starting from today. It's done because each of new weeks introduces a new model that could be useful for you to accommodate this task. Let's say on the week one, we already passed these client-server communication via the popular protocols, and in the current week, you're going to learn about asynchronous approaches in JavaScript, how to deal with asynchronous requests, how to handle them, which could also make use of using such features as promise, understanding of event loop to deal with asynchronous programming. The next week, as you can see, there is one more module about JS modules, which could help you to organize your code base into the logically structured modules. And the final week for the async race also like shows you about some npm basics as well as webpack, which let you to gather all your modules into one single bundle that could be used in the application. So that's the preliminary plan for you to have a better understanding of what is expected. So I propose you to take a closer look at the task. And I also prepared uh, the task example from one of the previous course runs for you to have a better understanding of what is expected. So, first of all, the task intention is to make you practicing with the asynchronous communication between client and server, as well as handling those asynchronous operations and to have some play with the DOM API. Yeah. So for now, as we'll take a closer look right now. What else you need to accommodate this task is to have a look at this repository, which is will be your backend. So all of you will have the local copy of this repository in your local directory. So basically, all you need is to clone this repo to your local computer, install dependencies via npm install. So for now, I already have all of them. And by running command npm start, we're running our backend server. So for now, as we can see, when we started the backend, some of the data appeared here. So important thing here is that this application uses SPA approach, which stands for single page application. So because we don't have any experience with of working with popular frameworks that's already implemented SPA approach, we can do a simple approach. So here, for example, we'll have two pages. This one is called garage pages. That shows us all the cars available in our garage. And the winners page, that is actually the scoreboard of the cars that managed to go to the finish first. So as you can see, the navigation occurs smoothly and without resetting the current state. So for example, let's say we have the pagination here, and whenever we navigate in between the pages, the state is the same. We are on the second page, which means that's the SPA approach implemented correctly. As you can see, whenever I am navigating, there is no like URL change. So basically, the most simple way to achieve such behavior is to implement two blocks, which represents the pages. And whenever you're clicking the button, you could either remove the entire block from the DOM element or just assign the hidden class or whatever the approach you will see will suit the most. But anyway, the DOM manipulation by clicking the button is the simple approach that could be useful in task implementation. So I believe with this peer approach, we're good. So to be on the same page, so let's get deeper into the functional requirements. Yeah, I already mentioned that we have two pages. The garage page contain its name and amount of items available right now from the database. So to fill in the data that is available in Garage, so maybe let's do something like that for your convenience. So whenever we're navigating to the page, we call the APIs to get all the data available in two pages. As you see, the Garage request returns us only 6 items. That's because we are on the first page. But at the same time, we see that there is much more items available in the database. It's 104. So by clicking the next or previous page, we could navigate through the list of available cars in the database, and each time it will return 6 items. By the way, to have better understanding on which request you could make to get the data, you could refer to the Async Race API repository with the list of the requests available in this backend application. So for now, as we see, yeah, by invoking the garage endpoint and passing optional arguments as the query parameter, we could retrieve all the necessary data for us to render it, as well as winners. So I believe that's pretty much clear. So winners page also uses the set of data that we previously requested. Okay, so let's go further through the requirements. Okay, so I just a bit lost. Great. And so view state should be saved. As that's exactly what I mentioned. Whenever I navigate between two pages, the state should be the same. So now, as you can see, I'm still on the second page. Okay, now next. In the garage view, there should be a form to create or to update the existing car. So let's say now to create a new car in the database, I need to enter the name and select the RGB color here. So this is the standard interface. So I could select any of the RGB color from the palette and click create. Whenever I click that, okay, so maybe let's sort it by the waterfall. Okay, so now, so maybe the following. Okay, so I wrongly sorted it. Okay. Okay, now we see that whenever we click create, the post request has been sent with our payload to create a car. And whenever the request is successful, we just refetch the page with a new set of created cars. And I believe the cars has been created in the, maybe not in the beginning, as we see, maybe in the end of the list. So we could like navigate to it and we see the test cars has been created. Great, let's go further. And at the same time, we could like edit our created car from the list by clicking select. As you can see, the second input has been changed so that we could rename it, let's say test2, and change its color from the RGB palette. Once we click update, this card that we previously selected should be updated. Great. The main mechanism here is to making the race for all of the cars. So maybe for your convenience, let's clear the list of requests. And so let's see, each car in the current list has 2 buttons. The first button will start its movement, and the stop button will actually stop it. So what's happening here? Whenever we click the first button, okay, we send the request with status for starting the drive. Just one more time, I will do the following. Let's switch to the Sol 3G. Okay, the car will not start the movement whenever until we receive the 200 status, which states OK. So whenever we click here, first we send request for starting the engine, and whenever it's successful, we're stating status drive. Why we need to do so? Because in some reasons, while sending the request drive, we could receive 500 status with the error that car stopped suddenly because the engine is broken and it's not able to get until the finish. By invoking the start status, we receive the distance and velocity. Each car has different velocity, which means that only one winner is possible here. So distance and velocity is used to calculate the time of the animation till the finish. So the animation is also depends on the current resolution. For example, now if I change like the width of my browser, for now we see that the cars are still on the same position. That's quite okay. That's expected. But what I wanted to show you is that the finish point to the car will be depend on the browser width. So previously the point of finish was here, and now I increased the width. And as you see, the finish point now has been changed. So no need to re-render those cars whenever we resize the browser, because it's a quite hard edge case, and for now we assume that's okay. The only thing that you need to be care of is to identify the finish point depending on the current width. So for now, I believe that's clear. The second button will stop the car from racing, or it will reset to the previous position by setting the status stopped. Whenever you receive the response from the backend, you need to render the car at the starting point. Okay, it could be done after the car has been finished or has not been finished yet. Let's say we click on play, it started, and we click stop. Yeah, the car has been stopped moving, and it's returned back to initial position. Okay, so that's how we could start the cars individually. What if we want to run the race between all the cars and to find a winner that could be right into the winners table? In that case, we click race, which will stop all the cars for moving. You see that some of them moving with the different velocity that you get from the started response. And as you can see, one of the winner has arrived first. And whenever we click the winners, we will see for now the only Tesla. And now, yeah, Alfa Romeo, which comes first, will also like mentioned here in the winners table. Okay, so that's the main logic here. So you could like refer to the task description for more info, but this is like the main concept of the application that needs to be implemented during 3 weeks. One more time to propose you the plan from which you could start the implementation. So for now, we're here. So in the first week, you could start from the single JS file connected to the HTML to implement the main logic, the layout, and switching between the pages and gathering the data. If you will have the enough time for that, you could also start making the main logic with race, with animations, everything that is related to the visual UI logic. The next week, you could start refactoring of the code by identifying which pieces of code could be moved to the separate file. So basically, you could learn more the next week, not to spend time right now. Whenever you got the JS modules, you could start like structuring your code base into multiple modules with the single responsibility. And the final week could make use of you to organize the bundling mechanism, as well as some possible refactoring, bug fixes, and so on. Okay, so before we move on to your questions, so let's agree on the following. And anyway, I will also add this information to the follow-up, to the announcements. Let's agree that we will leave all the possible questions to the task whenever you encounter some problems in a separate file, which I identify later on. And the next Q&A session, we will spend some time to answer your questions in terms of technical understanding of requirements, other questions. So let's gather the questions relative to the task so that we could gather one more time next, well, if I'm not mistaken, because I see that I'm canceled some of the meetings. So let's check. If I'm not mistaken, next week we have the Q&A session with you. So let's agree on gathering all the questions related to the task. Yeah, of course, you could use the Discord communication as well, so that we could like try to resolve it. But at the same time, let's try to gather it in one place so that we could return to it back and discuss every obstacle that's you encountered, and we could propose the best practices. Okay, cool. So I believe we're done with presentation. That is quite interesting and challenging. So I hope you could cope well with that. Yeah. So waiting for questions. Okay, just in case, maybe let's review one more time the async race, because apart from functional requirements that I just showed you, yeah, I haven't like dig so deeper into details because we already like spent about 25 minutes, because I haven't like showed you that we could also sort the table by the criteria, but not in my demo. Yeah, we see it's applies with a bit of delay because I slowed the connection. Yeah, the table also have sorting, and don't forget about the pagination. The pagination could be achieved by passing the query parameters while getting the details through the request right here. The one page could like consist not of 6 cars or winners, but 7 or 8. You could identify it by your own. As for the non-functional requirements, one more thing. Yeah, so we do not use any of the libraries and frameworks. Everything that's we're targeting should be implemented with the usage of pure JS and CSS and a bit of markup. The other like requirements regarding division to logical layers, so I believe that could be accommodated later on. Whenever you get a better understanding on how to work with JS modules, I believe others are quite clear for you. But anyway, in case if something is not clear in terms of tasks, so please let us know. Okay, any questions? Okay, there was a part about eslint. We will have it for the last week, right? When we'll be refactoring the code. Why I'm asking it now should be the last thing that has to bother us now, but don't know where to start. So actually, for the eslint, that's the thing that doesn't like depends on when you're going to set up it. But this is something that will much simplify the process of implementation. Well, I'm not sure whether we cover the ESLint topic at all, because I don't see it in the schedule. But anyway, let's like have a just brief example for you. What's the eslint is? For example, there is some piece of code. Uh, According to the style requirements, to identify the string, we use single quotes. Of course, you could do the double quotes for the string. Yeah, but that's not quite correct in terms of the single quote style, which ESLint exactly tells me that I need to use the single quote instead of the double ones. So the ESLint, this is the instrument that could help you to identify the pieces of code that doesn't match your settings, the code style requirements, highlight them using popular IDEs, and you could either pick them or address them at earlier stages. So let's agree on the following. I believe it would be better to install and set up the ESLint at the earliest stage of implementation, because it will help you to avoid the code style issues at the very beginning. Otherwise, if you will do as the final one, you have to spend more time for fixing your code in terms of compliance with Airbnb style guide. By the way, you could like refer to this style guide at the free time to see the best practices of implementing or using some of the structures. Let's say if we refer to the strings, yeah, this is exactly what I was mentioning. Yeah, in JS, there are several ways how can we declare the string. The old one in the ES5, the always double quotes was used. But now the best practice is to use the single quotes in case if it's the simple string, and there is also the template string, which is doesn't make sense here because we have the static text. But in case if you have something dynamic, in this case you could use this template string. That's one of the examples. Well, I believe you understand the importance of sticking to one code style agreement. But in a few words, it's something about making the code understandable for each of your teammates. In case if you have a single agreement for um, making the code in one single style that's aware and understands each of the teammates, that's make a great chance that another teammate that will look at your code, or he needs to like to implement some sort of fixes or to add a new feature, it will be much less painful for him to get deeper into your code. So that's why let's agree that in case if you have possibility to install the ESLint at the earliest stage, that would be great to avoid double work in the future. Great. Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead. Yeah, Martin, you raised the hands.
Ah, yes. Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Yes, hey. I would like to ask at the beginning, you said about that SPA functionality, and could you please tell a bit more? Because what I know at the moment that we use frameworks for that, but you said that we could kind of, I don't know, display none one of the blocks of the page, or could you please tell a few words more about that functionality. How?
okay. I already mentioned, but let's one more time to have a look. So we use the term SPA to describe the behavior when the state of the application isn't resetted. So let's say in the garage state, we are currently on the 15th page, right? Whenever we get redirected between two of the pages, we don't reset the state. So now you see that the state is not initial, or now we're on the 15th page and some of the cars are on their way, but the engine is broken. That's the only reason we make use of the SPA. Of course, in the current task, we're not going to implement a fully featured SPA framework, of course. We could use the simplified version to it. As I proposed at the very beginning, we could simply just implement two HTML blocks that could be toggled between each other by clicking the button. That's the simplest way to achieve this behavior. Okay, so I believe I answered your question. Is there anything that needs to be discussed? Okay, the silence will take us everything is clear. I hope so. Okay, the next one. Where the project should be deployed in a private repository. Not sure about right now. It definitely should be deployed. In case if you're not able to use the private repository to deploy to the GitHub pages, because I remember there is like some of the problems with it. Okay, let's do the following. Let's take me some time to find the information because I remember that there is the feasibility, such feasibility to deploy from the your private repository to the GitHub IO, which could be the simplest solution. I will find the link and probably post it to the announcement. But you're also like free to use any other platform to deploy your pages. So most of them used like the GitHub IO. You could also use Natify to upload your build version of the HTML. But let's stick to the GitHub IO, the GitHub pages. We'll find the information about it and we'll post to the announcements as meeting follow-up. Okay, anything else to discuss? Okay, then I take the silence as no other questions. Okay, so shortly we'll post the recording and the short follow-up with the key points from today's Q&A. Okay then, so let's agree to gather next week and be prepared with the questions about the task in terms of technical details or understanding so that we could propose the best practices for you. As for today, I believe we're done. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your attention, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Merry Christmas for everybody.